So first, I've never just been a pure writer on a game. That sounds beautiful sometimes. I wish I had the luxury of doing that. I think about that sometimes. I really do. I think about like just going and jumping on somebody else's game and helping them out and just doing writing. That sounds fun. But there's always something to do. There's always something to do in every single discipline, right? Be it art, be it music. There's always something to be doing, right? And so for the writing cycle is like I was just did a video talking about this beginning part where you're just coming up with the ideas, and really it's a lot of what gonna base what everybody else is gonna kind of base their stuff on, right? Because you're designing the world and how it's gonna flow, and you're kind of creating the narrative of what the world kind of feels like and looks like. And then you're actually taking that and you're creating characters. You're creating characters and often creatures with artists, right, and programmers, because you're going to have AI around these things, right? And what can they do? What can they work like? And then like the characters will take a really long time. It's all this process is never like, hey, there's Nick, let's go. It's always like, hey, that's the first iteration of it. Like that's the gist of it. Now we're going to do we're going to find we're going to find people to do art reference for, and then we're going to actually implement that, and then we're going to do feedback of it. And I remember at one point, especially for Left 4 Dead 2, I thought the characters kind of looked a little weird. And then one of the artists like, I got it. I'm going to make them look good. And she did. She went back, and I swear every time I walked into her office, she was just working on their butts. But it's a constant thing, right? And then you're writing, and then you're working with the level designers, because the level designers are actually doing it. Like, what are you actually doing in this level? What is this happening here? What's going to be here? And you'd be like, oh, can you put this here? Because I could talk about that, make a gag about that, right? And so then you're doing that. And then you're actually writing those lines. And then you're going into the recording studio and you're recording those lines. And then you're taking that audio back and you're cutting it up, meaning you'll do a take. Like, we never just do one take. We never just have a voice actor just do, like, read the script. It's always like, do a take, do two at least, normally three, but you do two, and then if you don't think there's one good enough in there, you have them do more takes, but you at least always have two, so you have coverage. And then you'll go back and you cut that audio, which means for me, I load up Audition and I'm cutting out the audio. I hate doing that part. That is the worst part of writing, because the A/B test, A/B. You're like, oh, it's so hard to do. It's kind of like, I used to wear glasses. I have LASIK now, and that glasses test when it was like A, B. I would get overwhelmed. I couldn't decide what was better, and so I hate doing that part. But so you cut the audio, you load it into the game engine and then you're actually going through the levels and you're hooking it up, and that means you're either placing stuff in the levels so that they can remark about it because they'll see it in the level, or you're hooking it up for the beginning of levels, and then you're testing it. And then you're getting it and going to localization. If you have a good localizer, they're actually asking you questions on it, like, what is this in reference to? What is this? And that takes a while. And then you're making sure that localization gets implemented into the game. And it's a really long process. You are fixing bugs all the time. I would have to explain if somebody was new and they were bugging me about my bugs, because I would have just a ton of bugs, because someone would be like, there's a problem here or whatever. That's the cycle. To close that bug is that long of a set of things, right? And so I can't just fix the bug normally that minute. I have to do that whole cycle of it. So at the end of the day, like the last week before we go into CERT or before we lock down shipping, I'm doing nothing but closing bugs. Because all of these bugs now finally have the audio in. I finally have that in game. I can now test it and close it, right? And I will close like 1,000 bugs. And so, I've gotten pulled aside of like, hey, you've got a ton of bugs. You gotta come fix the bugs. I can't close any of them. They're all in progress. They all are, but they'll all get closed, and they get closed, and then we go off to CERT. So the process of writing is all that way through. I mean, in something like Portal 2, we actually in Squirrel wrote how the characters talk. Same with CS:GO, wrote the system that the players use, or the characters use, to actually talk. So there's some coding in there as well. But then also for me, I was also sometimes project lead, where I was involved with all the other parts of it, or at least doing some of the marketing of the game, where I was going out and talking about the game with people. That's both fun and tiring. Everything's fun. Honestly, everything's fun about making a game. But yeah, so it is not just write it in the beginning and be like, I think there are jobs like that. And again, I think that I want to try that sometime, because I think that sounds fun. Just have my perfect words go out there, and when they're not perfect at the end, I can blame everybody else but me.